Hello and welcome. I am Fun, and today I will showcase another shenanigan you can do in Gemblenders. These shenanigans are not always or necessarily the best way to build your decks around. They might not be consistent. They might actually not have the strength as you want them to compared to the meta or be correct answers as of current. But they are nevertheless cool things you can do. Um, and interesting things you can build your decks around that can push your deck, and it might actually just be what you need in a deck, and it might actually just be what the meta calls for at this moment or at that moment. So yes, they might not be the most consistent or the most strongest, but they are most definitely cool. And in this video I will showcase much to the same as the Claire Reflector variant, where we got a level 4 blend out on turn 2. We'll try to get the same done with Usher, but with the added benefit that we can actually get a level 5 blend out on turn 2 as well through double using Usher. And yeah, let's get into a game and I can start speaking about what we want to do. So we want to start out with Claire, because that way we can attach 2 gems. Then we want to use Francisco to move the gems around where we need them to be. And Hickory can then both get an Aqua gem and a Nocturna gem to begin to use Usher on turn 1. And then as well on turn 2, and then we have 5 gems in total. And yeah, I'll go over that. But we cannot pull all the gems because Reflector was able to copy Francisco's effect, which we don't have Reflector anymore. So that means Usher cannot help itself get rid of the gem that's on it. So instead we need to find a second Usher to get another gem down directly onto Claire or Leilani, as I will explain. So we have 5 gems out, 4 usable, and it is what it is. But with Leilani, we can just put a gem on Leilani and she can pull all the gems to herself. So that means we can have 5 gems out and all 5 gems be available on one hero. So we can begin blending on it. And this is much less consistent than if we just use Selma to find the gems that we need and not fussing about it. But there are ways to make it more consistent to actually get those gems, and I'll explain that as we go on. So right now, just calm. I'll showcase it with Leilani in mind. Right. So I haven't built a deck around it. This is just like things that can be in the deck. Right. So turn 1, we really want to find an Aqua gem and a Nocturna gem. So that's why it's important to have a high amount of Aqua gems and Nocturna gems, as well as what other gem that you need. So let's say we're building a Terror, Cryo, Capro. Yeah, so that's Mantis Slasher with Arrow Gem. Yeah, and then we have, where are you? Lattice Crusher, yeah, with Pyro as well. Alright, so that's the gems that we have in the deck, and you want to make sure you draw both the Aqua to attach to Claire, using her effect to put a Nocturna gem on Francisco. Francisco then pulls the Aqua gem, and then puts all the gems on Hickory through his effect, moving, and that 3 gem movements. Then we're gonna use Hickory to find Usher. And that's the next step. You really need to have enough gems in hand. So a big part of the deck needs to be gems, because we aren't really running any blends that searches gems. Sure, you can put Cone in, but because you want to rush it so soon, or maybe you actually don't want to, but we do. You need to go Usher first, so you cannot Cone first, and so on. So here we're just gonna put Cryogem on Leilani, and that's the first turn. We already have 3 gems down. Alright, and then turn 2, put another Terra gem on Leilani, and now we can begin coning if we have that in hand. You really want to run 3 gem blend searches and 3 cones to make sure you can find them if you're running a deck combination that runs cone, which could be why didn't I just take them out when I saw them? Lattice Crusher can run both cone and Usher, though it doesn't utilize the Aqua Gem, but that's fine. I'll get to that. And the perfect one is almost Mantis Slasher. You can do it quite easily with Mantis Slasher, and then you just find the second Usher, drop Error Gem, and pull all the gems, and well, just gonna draw into the Mantis Slasher or the Lattice Crusher, and that's kind of the downside of this setup. And you could use just Selma to make sure to find the level 4 blend, which could be a Void Charmer, though it doesn't run. Sorry, it's not running cone. We could be running Pine. Needle Rusher. That's quite fine. You have 4 damage. You get to look at some Terra gems. You get to get set up for Lattice Crusher later on. So you maybe in turn 2 you switch out a blend and get it down. Mineral Juggler to some extent as well. Slip Nutter. I actually think that works quite well. Though the issue is actually you need to run into, well, yeah, it actually might be beneficial that you need to run both high levels of Aqua Gems and Terra Gem and Nocturna Gems. So you're running into them quite often, so it's more likely that you will have 2 of them, and then you will be fine. Because the thing is, if we don't run Leilani, let's see, we have Aqua and Nocturna, and then we are on turn 2. You already have a 3rd gem, so let's say we are trying to go for a Slipknotter. I don't have Electro gems, I'm afraid. So we'll just put a Terra gem from hand onto Claire, and then on top of that, we'll get a Capra gem onto Francisco through the second Usher. That's the 4 gems that we have. Sorry, we should have 5 because we had 3 gems on turn 1. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that should be another Nocturna or whatever. We attach that to Claire. We can only take 1 gem from Hickory to Francisco and then to Claire, and then the last one as well. So we will just be having 4 gems, but we will be able to quite consistently do that. And then we can get Void Charmer, Slipknotter, Needle Rusher, and a lot of other Summit Glacier and so on. But what I actually would suggest to do is actually just run something like Lattice Crusher, because though it's not running Aqua Gem, that's fine. Lattice Crusher gets access to both Condensation Collector, Mirror Chaser to move around quite easily, and most importantly, it gets access to Pinecone. So if you're running 3 blend searches, 3 super blend searches, you can run into it, Lattice Crusher, quite easily. So that's 3 blend searches, which helps finding one of the 3 pine cones. So that's 6 cards already. Super blend search, that's 12. We're up on 9, plus the 3 Lattice Crushers, that's already 12. That's 12 cards you can draw into that will make sure you get Lattice Crusher, which is honestly quite likely. It's not perfect, but it's going to be quite likely to happen. And then you just build your gems around, get your cones in, which you can also get out on your blend searches, to help getting the Usher. Yeah, I think there's a lot of combinations here, and as you can see, if you can get a level 5 blend on turn 2, like Mantis Slasher was with 5 damage and no drawback, and you can begin milling your opponent with the cards you don't need. You can get Summit Glacier out to deal 3 damage, which is fine, and just move your opponent around. And if they cannot get around that, and if they get into an awkward spot, like, you might just have the game at that point. You can utilize Condensation Collector with Lattice Crusher, as well as Mage. You can begin doing some. You can do some quite fun stuff in this deck. It will have access to a lot of options. It's just about if the options are good. Yeah, so these are the cards that I kind of have thought about utilizing in such a deck. You can use Foul to get around discarding some cards to draw new cards. You could combine that with Condensation Collector if you're going that route, but if you're using Foul, you're probably going into Mantis Slasher anyway. It's escaping my... yeah. And then you don't really need Condensation Collector because you're not running Pyro, because that would put your consistency down. You could still run Capro Gem just to get the Pinecone, which would up your consistency overall. So yeah, not all of them is as easy as others, and you might actually want to just get that Cryo in if you're running Torrent Crasher to make sure you can get gems, or more likely to get the gems, because that's another aspect. And keep in mind, your levels will be quite weird. At least in this setup with Leilani, you will have a level 5 and level 4. If you're running Selma, you only have a level 4 and level 3. So you are quite restrained in that sense. You have very little movability, so if you get moved around, like you kind of need to include something like a Mirror Chaser to help getting around that. Yeah. And worthy cards, yeah, there is quite a few. I find worthy Slipknotter. The sooner you get it out, the more punishing it is for your opponent, as well as 3 damage is nothing to scoff at. Needle Rusher getting through some Terra Gems, which especially early on, where they are likely to be high amount of them, that's quite fine. I don't know, Cannon Boomer, just included it, thought I would mention it. Brass Card works quite well with Lattice Crusher. That's going to be 5 attack on your own turn instead of just 2. So it's not that bad. Pearl Deceptor can also get out quite easy this way. But again, you have to build around it. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about it. It's quite cool to get a level 5 plan out on turn 2. Or level 4. Just build your deck around it, consider your consistency, and consider if it's even worth it to try, or if you just want to hit likelihood of actually hitting it. I'll try to build a deck around it and showcase it one day, hopefully. But anyways, I'm rambling. Thank you for watching, and see you around.